Welcome to Engage for Success Radio and show number 575 in our weekly series. Engage for Success is a not-for-profit movement and the UK's leading voice on the topic of employee engagement. We're out there raising awareness and running events through our area networks right around the country. And our topic and sector-specific thought and action groups are developing research, publishing case studies, and shining a light on all the great practice that's going on out there. You can visit engageforsuccess.org to learn more. And while you're there, why not sign up for our weekly newsletter so you never miss out on any of our great free resources, events, and updates. And I'm Andy Gorham, your host for today's show and the founder of BizJuicer, an employee engagement and culture change consultancy that helps take the tricky out of being sticky, helping growing organizations attract, keep, and develop great people. So then, today we're going to look at the frankly wonderful idea of falling in love with your life. And in particular, what are some of the things that could get in the way of being able to do that? And then what can you do about those things? And joining us today to share her insights on all this stuff is Victoria Dioh. Victoria is an African oracle, an intuit, a healer. And she helps leaders who have sacrificed their personal fulfillment for professional success fall in love with their life again. And as a result, they enhance their well-being and wealth hugely. Before surrendering to her own purpose, Victoria managed some of the country's most high-profile initiatives, including things as the MP expenses, IT infrastructure, and the 2012 Olympics Red Route. She's also an international speaker, having graced the stages across the world from Tony Robbins in Tenerife to stages in Africa. Victoria strongly believes that everyone is born with a purpose, that reason for being on earth, and that your intuition will help you to embody your purpose, pivoting a life full of clarity, confidence, and success. Victoria, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. That sounded so good when you read it like that.
It is good. It's fascinating. I think I only dropped a small pebble in the ocean of all the stuff that you've
Oh,
got going on. Um, Victoria, I absolutely love this notion of falling in love with your life. But before I get all excited and we get to talk about all that kind of stuff, it'd be great just to get a little bit more information about you, who you are, and what you're working on at the moment.
well, thanks so much for having me. So, a bit more about me. Well, I am that person who comes in and untangles your life. It's that simple. I've had the gift probably since I was about 13. I remember at 13, I was asked to solve a major, very controversial problem when I was at boarding school in Africa. And you know, even then I could see the the seed of leadership growing. But before that, I used to be in the corporate world, born of African parents. It was the whole thing. You have to go to school, you have to study, you have to get a degree and everything else. So you follow the route that's already been paved for you. And I don't regret any of that. However, you get to a certain point in life where you start to wonder, is this it?
Mm.
And I know about 90% of people I've met have asked that question. Is this it? Is this all I'm here to do? And what's next? And that's normally your purpose calling you.
Mm.
So my aha moment happened when I was earning probably the most I've ever earned, um, using the tools and techniques that I use today with people. I've actually enhanced my salaries by up to 750% within 9 months.
Wow.
So I've walked the walk and I'm still walking the walk. And yeah, and I remember sort of like walking down the road, and it was actually when I was managing the Olympics Red Route.
Mm.
I remember walking down the street one day with all this money in my bank and just feeling really empty and asking myself, is this it? And it scared the life out of me
Mm.
because then it meant, well, if this isn't it, then I have to retrain into something else. That was the perception. I have to retrain into something else. I have to start all over again. And I didn't want to do that. And there's actually a way to be able to start all over again without having to learn the craft and everything else. You've got the tools right there in front of you. So yeah, that's me. And when I really leaned into my purpose and really started to follow my intuition rather than what society expected of me, I've never been happier, and I've transformed several lives as a result of doing that. And very quickly, you asked me what I'm working on now. Right now, I'm heading the Intuitive Leadership Summit, the first of its kind. We've got a mixture of corporate and business leaders, and I've got 28. And it's a virtual summit, and I'm hosting that as we speak.
Well, look, thank you for fitting us in that hectic kind of 28 speaker management. I can only imagine what that's like to sort of get a grip of. But you untangle stuff, Victoria. So
Yes,
you're making it easy. I'm sure it's well within
yes.
your powers.
And you know what? Even this morning, as I was getting ready for this, I, gave thanks, gave gratitude for the fact that it has been easy,
Mm.
and yet received several compliments about how amazing it is. I've just done it all on my own. I normally run a summit and I'd hire a team of five. This time round, I decided to do it on my own, and it has been a very fulfilling experience. It's been quite spiritual, if I'm really honest, because
Mm.
it seemed quite seamless, in ways. So yes, I don't underestimate the work that has been done on it.
Well, that's brilliant. Well, let's see if we can make the next sort of 20 minutes that we've got left with each other or so just
Mm,
as impactful and easy and smooth. Because I love this whole phrase of falling in love with your life. I think it just conjures up some wonderful, wonderful images. Um, it sounds like such a simple, wonderful notion, but what does it mean to you? And what does it actually take to achieve that, Victoria?
So for me, falling in love with my life is being aligned with what I'm here to do.
Mhm.
So you hear speakers and some of the most successful entrepreneurs say this, that it's purposeful action. You need to understand why you're here. So imagine the chair that you're sat on not being sat on. Maybe you decide to cook on the chair that you're sat on. Your chair wasn't meant to be cooked on, it's meant to be sat on. And when you start fulfilling your purpose, then you start to feel more fulfilled because you are in service. So everybody on this earth is meant to serve. So you find that if you're take, you're going to come unstuck.
Mm.
It's not sustainable. You're meant to be serving. So that chair serves you to sit down on it. Now, as soon as the chair wants to be, I don't know, against a wall, it looks awkward. It doesn't look right. So you need to understand why you're here. Now, in my work, I have 100% success rate in helping people find their purpose, but a lot of people really struggle.
Mm.
But the quick tip is, if you look at your life right now, where you find the most joy, lean into that more, because your purpose is part of that. It's not it, but it's part of that. So for me, really being of service to the people who I help helps me fall in love with my life, but also using my intuition. So the more you're in purpose, the more you use your intuition. So if you listen to speakers like uh, J.K. Rowling and Richard Branson and Steve Jobs, they all talk about their intuition, and Steve Jobs actually wanted to fire people in Apple in the early days if they didn't lean into using their intuition. So intuition is really cool because you stop listening to the noise, you remove the noise around you, and you focus on you, which means that you step into a place where fear isn't a thing, stress isn't a thing. And when even if stress comes in, you can bounce it back because you know where you're going. That doesn't mean that it's full certainty and that you can predict stuff. What it means is that your purpose overrides everything else. So you get moved in a direction that is not based on society.
Mhm.
That's not based on what your parents told you to do or what's expected of you. So for me, that's happy. That's happiness. That's falling in love with my life. I could be in the most dire straits situation, which I have been. This isn't talking about life being perfect. That I've been in the most dire straits of situation, where sometimes business hasn't gone as well as it wanted to. We've not landed the deal that we wanted to. And I've still sat down and gone, so how do you feel about your life? And I go, I love my life
Mm.
because that doesn't dictate the external factors don't dictate whether I'm in love with my life or not. Yet, if you walk down the street and interview maybe the top five people, they'll say to you that they're unhappy because the weather, they're unhappy because they don't like their job, they're unhappy because there's always an external factor. When you're in purpose, you come from within and you realize that your purpose is so much bigger than than you. You stop worrying about you and you start thinking about the people that you're here to serve.
I mean, that's a wonderful picture that you paint. I think that word love, it's
Mm,
such a strong word, isn't it? It's a
yes.
really strong word. In the work that you do when you're trying to help people, do you ever find people have a problem with that word love? Is it something that people really embrace and understand, or people maybe feel a bit uncomfortable and shy away from it? What's your experience with that?
That's a great question. Nobody yet has felt what's the word as an imposter
Mm,
around the word love, and I'll tell you why. Before you are a leader, you're a human being first, and our six human needs. We want to be able to connect. We want to fall in love. We need certainty. We need uncertainty. We want to be able to contribute. We want to be able to grow, and we need significance. The connection and love is a huge point. So as soon as you mention it, you see people soften. I've been in the financial district in London with some of the most logical, focused human beings. And as soon as you mention fall in love with your life, you can see them just relax because it's a word that may not be used often, but it's something that we all crave and we lean into. So when we say it's strong because we don't use it enough. And when we do use it, we use it as a robot. We're very robot-like. I love you, but there's no emotion with it. When I talk about falling in love with your life, even just the vibration of my voice tells you that this is something that is very authentic to you.
mm.
And it's what a lot of people crave, but they don't even know they're craving it.
I think that's so true. I was with a group only yesterday, quite young
Mm,
in their leadership career, and we were talking about the principles around connection and belonging
mm,
and empathy. And for most of them, these weren't conversations or words that they'd used in the context of leading people before. But like you've just espoused there, those six pieces that need to connect, genuine need to connect, to feel a sense of belonging.
right.
These are really important things when we're dealing with other humans, right? With
Yes,
with other people.
very much so. Yeah.
So you obviously help untangle pieces of people's lives, help them see their true purpose, help them leave into that, help them fall in love with their lives.
Mm.
And I would imagine, I'm saying imagine, I'm asking for a friend. I know, so I have my own stuff going on, right? um, we're dealing with a load of things that can get in the way, that can really prove to be quite considerable obstacles in our lives. In letting ourselves, which I guess is part of this, of letting yourself fall in love with your
Mm.
life. When you look at what's going on in the hurly-burly world we live in today, what do you see as some of those major obstacles that frustrate people's ability to lean in and fall in love with their life again?
I believe it's I call it social hygiene. Like you're poured into a space where right now you have a lot of social media.
Yeah.
So just listening to social media and listening to everything without being discerning as to what you're listening to can stop you from falling into your life. So, I mean, I'm on social media a lot because of my business, and it's very easy for me to start scrolling up and down, and you get distracted by so much. It's having the discernment to go, do you know what? I don't need to look at this right now.
Mm.
This doesn't serve me. Or when you look at the comments, not to get carried away into the comments. So, there's trolls. There's always people giving their half a penny as to why they don't agree with somebody, getting involved in that. Or trying to follow the crowd. There's nothing worse than following the crowd. where are you going? That's what
Mm,
I ask my clients. I'm like, where are you going? Well, this one so said, but yeah, but where are you going? Don't follow blindly.
mm,
Don't listen to the noise. This is where you start to use your senses, right? If it doesn't feel right, it's not right. Trust yourself. Trust yourself. If it doesn't feel right, you're being given different levels of senses to be able to make sure that you don't get carried down the route of not falling in love with your life.
yeah,
When you're born, you love yourself. When you're born, you you have your intuition, but society dilutes the intuition, make sure that you lose it. It starts telling you how to dress, how to think. So the whole aspect of um, you know, how to dress, for example. So I know in corporate world, you have to dress very smartly. It's expected of you. Appearance is everything and everything else. But I know some people who dress the most incredible and they're broken inside and they're really
mm,
struggling. And I make a statement when I go into corporate and some people will hate this, but I go to the London Stock Exchange. I go to London Stock Exchange where I do different bits of work, and I walk in and I take my shoes off, and I stand there barefoot, grounded in my space. My feet are clean, but I stand there grounded, and I help people in that way. And everybody knows it. But do you know what? Because I'm in purpose, nobody thinks that, oh goodness, you shouldn't, you need to be wearing shoes and stuff. And it keeps me grounded. But also because I'm being me, nobody thinks about it.
mm.
Nobody questions it. And it's just a thing. So you need to stop listening to what other people are saying, stop listening to what other people are doing. Of course, take guidance, but then use it for yourself. How does it apply to you?
Mm.
So, for example, people will be listening to this interview today. I'm not asking everybody to take everything from here, but there may be a couple of points where you go, do you know what? Those I'm going to take on board and I'm going to use those. And the others, maybe I don't agree with, and that's okay because you determine what you absorb and what you don't. So there's a lot that we take on because once we start going against our alignment, we create stress,
Mm.
we create a lot of mental health issues like depression. We even start to create physical ailments as well. And that's where my healing work comes in because a lot of people who come to me because they have been misaligned and they're suffering now from the mental health issues or the physical issues. And I use energy work to transmute that energy so that they can start the conversation of falling in love with their lives again. So there's different aspects to what I call my heal method,
Mm.
where we talk about energy healing, food, abundance mindset, and also self-love.
I think, I mean, it's really interesting the connection between the social media and the mental health
Mm,
situation, I guess, globally
100%. Yeah.
at the moment. And I would imagine, I mean, I think we've taken some great strides over the last, I guess, years in elevating the conversation around mental health. I'm sure that there are much more issues that you deal with today associated with these things. But we've also, I guess, within the physical piece, we're talking more about things like menopause and what have you today. And I mean, we've got such a long way to go on for those conversations, but
Yeah.
it does feel that maybe we're starting to appreciate or understand or empathize a bit more. Are these two big topics that you sort of see people facing into when we think about this topic of falling back in love with your life and getting over some hurdles?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just park the perimenopause just for a second, but
Mm,
there's also the loneliness as well.
mm,
Loneliness makes people go onto social media. If you're living on your own or you feel estranged from people, you're going to go where you fit in. So trying to fit into a box will take you onto social media. But then onto the perimenopause, nobody prepares you for the perimenopause. I can tell you that as a woman.
mm.
Nobody ever prepares you. I was talking to my niece who's in her 30s the other day, and I was asking her all these questions around perimenopause. I was like, "Do you know how long perimenopause goes on for?" She was like, "No." I was like, "Please learn this because perimenopause can start in your late 20s and it goes up until like your late 40s, sometimes early 50s. People don't realize that. And when you are experiencing the perimenopause, even as a woman, you struggle to understand what's going on with you because your first thought isn't, oh, it must be the perimenopause. So you start to experience things like brain fog, depression, low levels of libido, um, you reduce connection with other human beings. You're emotional. And when you're in a corporate space, working with people, nobody knows what's going on because
Mm,
you don't know what's going on. So I did a video the other day where I said, do you remember that young, vibrant woman who walked into your office and you gave her a job? And then ever so often, after over the years, you look over and goes, what on earth happened to her? She's turned into a right misery guts and stuff. It's like, no. She's going, her hormones aren't allowing her to be that vibrant woman anymore because she doesn't know what's going on. She's putting on weight. She can't remember her name on certain days and stuff. She doesn't know why she's here. Now, when you can start to understand why you're here, you start to interact more, and women of a certain age, and I feel old saying that, women of a certain age then start to feel more energized because they're in purpose. They're doing what they're here to do, and it also helps them manage their mental health. And also, it gives them more information around menopause and tips around menopause as well. For example, food. Who knew? But when you're in your perimenopause, guess what? You crave sugar. But there's other foods that also have sweet content that you can move over to that still allow you not to crave the sugar, but give you the satisfaction that you need. Or maybe just hanging out with people who also understand and allowing yourself to be emotional if you want to be emotional. So I cry just at a puppy dog walking across the road. And I allow myself to feel those things rather than feeling guilty.
mm,
But it's also important that people around you understand it as well. And it's one of the reasons why I do go into organizations and talk about intuitive menopause, using your intuition, empowering yourself as a woman, and also using your perimenopause as a gift as opposed to a hindrance.
mm. I think this is what's fascinating today, particularly
Mm.
in the workplace, because those two things we've just talked about, mental health and menopause as another example, these are things they're hidden. They're
Yeah.
hidden from everybody else around you, and it's going to take. I mean, it's going to take awareness. It's going to take a lot more than that for people to try and comprehend. And with the workforce still in the main being run by males who
Yes.
even allies who want to help and be there, we haven't experienced it. We don't know.
No,
We don't know what it's like.
no, you haven't. And here's the thing. Did you know that your menopausal journey also depends on your race? It also yeah, it's like there's ancestral trauma there that comes out as a woman and stuff. And none of this is really paid attention to. So straight away, you look at a woman in her 40s, maybe 30s, 40s, and sometimes even earlier, and you think she's not interested in her job anymore. You
Mm,
think to yourself, do you know what? She's no longer interested. We'll replace her. This woman needs to be educated. Organizations need to start having education for their employees so that they understand why they're feeling like that and there is support for them. It's like when a woman stops having her period on a regular basis, some women see that as a loss of empowerment because some women see their period as a very empowering experience, and all of a sudden it stops coming, or you don't know when it's coming, and then it may turn up and then it doesn't turn up, and you just never know whether you're coming or going.
mm.
It also impacts the relationships that women go in for. I have friends who have gone into some of the most questionable relationships when they've hit perimenopause, who have completely diluted their boundaries and allowed people to come in and take advantage of them, whether it's romantically or not during their perimenopause. So there's a lot of education that needs to be coming there, and it needs to not just be the book, the exercise topics. It needs to be the topics that nobody else is talking about, like I say, ancestral trauma.
Wow. I mean, we're just scratching the surface today on these things, but I really appreciate your perspective on it. Victoria, before I let you hustle back to managing the 28 speakers for your for your for your wonderful event, um, We've covered quite a lot of ground today in a very short
Mm.
space of time. But if you were to offer the listeners one major piece of advice in starting this journey to falling back in love with your life, what would that advice be?
Spend more time with you in quiet and just ask one powerful question. So, for example, today I'm running a summit, I'm running a masterclass, and I pray a lot as well. But I just asked, I said, I just need to know, what do I need to do next? And just be in quiet, switch off your phone, just be with you, whether it's going out into the greenery or being at home, just spend more time with you. Start with about 5 minutes, then increase it to 10 to 15. But when you spend more time with you, you'll realize that that's a form of meditation, and you'll start to get answers that you never expected to come through. And then, secondly, I'd also say give thanks for what you have. Stop thinking about what you don't have, in a space of gratitude. It's like when you've got kids, if they don't play with their toys, what do you say to them? If you don't play with them, I'm going to take them away. It's the same as everything that comes into your life. If you're not grateful for it, it's going to go away. So be grateful for what you've got, acknowledge it, and you'll be amazed at how life will seem a lot more easier.
I love that. That's just fabulous advice. And I've really enjoyed our conversation today,
Thank
Victoria.
you.
Thank you
I've
so much for
enjoyed it
coming in
too.
and sharing your thoughts, your wisdom, those insights, and your own personal experiences as well. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Before I let you run off, if people want to find out a bit more about you and what you do, where can they go?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Victoria Dioh. You can also find me on Instagram. You can find me on TikTok. You can find me on Facebook. I'm all over. And I'm really good at responding to emails and everything else. So drop me an email and what have you. I do have a free masterclass that normally runs. So if you come in, I can invite you to that and we can continue this conversation even deeper.
Beautiful. Well, Victoria, thanks so much for joining us today. Really, really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Andy.
Okay, guys, well, that's just about all we have time for today. Now, don't forget to visit engageforsuccess.org to check out the show notes and all our fab free engagement resources where you can download or stream any of the great shows from our archive at your leisure, including this one. And we'll be back again at the same time next week. I'm Andy Gorham. Thanks so much for listening to Engage for Success Radio.